What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another wild card showdown here at Fantasy Sports Insight. This is Hold the Door DFS. We are going to be covering the Rams and the Seahawks game in this video. So if you have not gotten a chance to check out the Colts and Bills breakdown, or the game maybe already started, check that out on our channel, and also look for tonight's game as well. So let's get into the slate. If you are not a subscriber here yet at Fantasy Sports Insight on our YouTube channel, that is the best way to repay and to support our channel. We greatly appreciate that. Throwing a like, subscribe, a comment, all those things are really helpful towards helping us continue to grow in a fashion that is free for everybody to listen to. So we have the Seahawks and the Rams. Excuse me, it is in Seattle. Seattle is a 3.5-point favorite. I think this line is really based on Goff playing, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And I think he will play. Earlier in the week, or like after their last game, it sounded less likely, but now I think it's definitely trending in the direction that Goff will play. So that is pretty indicative on the line that we're seeing here. That is a much closer than I think if Goff was listed as out. So let's get into the slate, because I think it's not as clear cut, because we do have some of the matchup issues that we are gonna face with the Seattle receivers. So let's start on the Seattle side first. They are favored. The pass defense for the Rams is phenomenal. So let's just look at the games. Let's see. So Russell Wilson with 19.9 against the Rams in week 17 or week 16, and 12 points in week 10. So we know Jalen Ramsey. We know that just the way the Rams are operating their defense is really really good against the pass. So having that in mind in a playoff game, somebody like Russell Wilson on a slate like this that we don't have these gems to pay up for, I still think you're probably locking Wilson in any cash lineup you're playing. Now, the next decision comes down to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. All indications have us thinking that Ramsey will again shadow Metcalf. And, in Metcalf's two performances this year against the Rams, in week 16, he had 6 catches on 8 targets with 59 yards. 11.9 is, okay, not what you want probably for 9.8K. And then 2 catches for 28 yards in week 10. So there's definitely an impact that Ramsey's going to have on the upside of somebody like DK Metcalf. Now, does that mean that DK Metcalf can't still, score 15, 20 points? If he gets a touchdown, still think he can get up there. But then you look down here at Tyler Lockett, the alternate option here, who week 17 had 12 catches on 14 targets. He in 2 games against the Rams, 3 catches on 5 targets for 44 yards and 5 catches on 9 targets for 66 yards. So he's not really like blowing off, either. So he's not really doing anything great. But I don't know. I'm really struggling with deciding this. I still think the upside is with Metcalf, but I don't love the matchup. I don't love the matchup for either of them. So maybe when we get into the builds, but I do think you end up falling on one of them, unless you just think the game script goes in the favor of the passing game for the Rams. Chris Carson is, again, another one that's just like a tough sell for me. I think 8,200 makes the price more reasonable, but just like the average amount of carries, 10 to 15, nothing too much, but he does catch those screen passes. And, at the beginning of the year, he had, 3 receiving touchdowns in the first 2 games, but he's consistently seized the ball through the air, right? That Hyde is not going to be catching balls out of the backfield. So I think he's a decent cash play. He has some upside if he scores. If he doesn't score, I don't expect him to go for more than 10 or be right around that projection. But again, I think the matchup is just so brutal for those receivers that I think you can get to Carson back at 8,200 if you want. Then we don't have a Seahawks player priced until the Seahawks defense at 4,600. And I actually think they're in play, especially if Goff is out. I definitely think they're in play if Goff is out. But if not, I still think you could consider them at 4,600. I prefer Myers at 3,600. I love kickers in cash. I always think they're way too cheap. And actually, statistically, if you match them up with their salary, they're almost always underpriced. Then we have the tight end roulette, which now will be even more complicated with Greg Olsen likely coming back. So you have Jacob Hollister here, who hasn't really been doing much. Had a touchdown week 16, week 15. Obviously, that is game script dependent, likely on a goal line pass. Carlos Hyde being the spell to Chris Carson, but in the last 2 weeks and didn't play week 17. I think because he was sick with maybe it was COVID related incident, so he should be back. It says even with Rashad Penny back in the lineup, there are fewer reps to go around behind Chris Carson, and Penny could ultimately end up with more playing time. So, and we'll get to him here in a second. So, but you see here with Penny, who is listed as questionable. He is on the injury report, and he was added late, so that is a little bit of a kind of a worry. But if he's in, he's a great play at 800 too. If he's going to be getting some decent work behind Chris Carson, David Moore did overtake Freddie Swain in terms of snap share last week. I don't know. I think both of them are pretty thin plays, but both of them might see the field. And then you have Greg Olsen here, who is likely to be back this week. Played week 16, one catch, 400. If he catches a ball or two, I think he pays off his price tag. So what's so weird about this is like, there's so many viable plays actually under here, under the kicker, but I don't really know that you need many or any of them when you look at how the pricing is constructed here. So let's get to the Rams side. Jared Goff is obviously going to be the number one news to follow tomorrow. And I think we'll find out decently early. It says 90 minutes before lock, but I assume they have a better indication prior to that. And I think he will play. And he said it felt good during practice. So, I mean, I think if it feels good and he's going to play, I think Jared Goff at 10,000 is somebody that you have to consider. I know he hasn't been that great the last 3 weeks, but he gets one of the best matchups in the league and in a game that they're not favored to win. So, unless this game stays extremely low scoring and always close enough for the Rams just to continue to hand the ball to Akers, then I think I love pairing up Jared Goff with somebody like Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp is 7,800, which is insanely underpriced to me. Because I think in a game, again, where the game script could get quickly into the favor of the passing game of the LA Rams, that I think you're going to see a lot of short passes to somebody like Cooper Kupp. And especially if his thumb is hurting him even at all a little bit, I would think that would, increase the likelihood of shorter passing game than throwing it deep. Cam Akers will be a decider on this slate. Obviously, he's been now finally touted more as the full-time back. He was kind of injured at the end of the season, but played through it. Obviously had an awful game against Arizona, but did catch 4 balls that actually, got him over in the double digits. So I do like Cam Akers at 8,600. I think he's viable. Again, if you're comparing Akers to DK Metcalf and Lockett, that's where the margins become pretty thin. Woods is in play too, but Woods is fine, but I'll take Kupp for 1,000 cheaper. I think that's a pretty easy pivot to me. Reynolds is GPP only for me. Higbee is viable. I like him more than Everett. He's definitely seen a lot more targets. Balls on the field, look at 26, 22, 44, 25. So I actually, I think Higbee is a really good option. I think he's a higher upside option than what you're going to get out of the kickers. Malcolm Brown at 4,000 saw, I think, the majority of the backup snaps behind Akers, but with how they're running Akers so much, I just don't see that, that many opportunities for anybody to be viable behind Akers. Otherwise, I think Gerald Everett is a flyer. Vincent Jefferson, I think it's Vincent, right? Oh, I don't know, V Jefferson. Jefferson, I don't know his first name. Week 17, that is not really a good one to look at, but in general, he's okay. Don't love him. After that, I think that's really it. I don't think there's any flyers that I'm taking down here. So let's look at this slate as a whole. I think it's really likely, maybe not likely, but let's just throw Russell Wilson in there at captain. I'd likely be playing Goff. And my other favorite cash play is somebody like Cup. So like even here, you can, if you want to pick one of the receivers, Metcalf or Lockett, that's fine. And then you may have to use one of those value plays down here. Or if you flip it and say you go somebody like Cup at captain, which I think because he's so underpriced is definitely in play, then you're in a more comfortable position where if you go somebody like Myers, you could also go double kicker. Or if you wanted to get up to the upside of somebody like Higbee, then you pay down for like David Moore or Rashad Penny, or take a flyer on someone like Freddie Swain. But I think in general in cash, I still think even with there's decent options down here, I still think you would prefer to be in the kicker range if you don't feel like you have to punt that much. And let's say you go down from Metcalf, let's say you go down to Carson, because you just don't want any part of that passing game. Then you can get back up to a kicker to pair with somebody like Higbee. So like Myers or whoever you want to pair with them. So I think there's a lot of options. This slate feels a lot less not cashy, a lot less predictable in terms of how people will build, because you're not just locking in like Allen, Diggs, and the kickers, and it just, the construction of things is going to be different because of the brutal matchup for somebody like Seattle's passing game. But I still think you go and lock in Russell Wilson just because he'll use his legs, he'll do anything he can to win the game. So that's kind of where I'm at. My three favorite cash plays: Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, and Cooper Kupp. My two favorite values are the kickers plus probably I'll say Gerald Everett and Hyde, because I think his role will get back more to normal now that he's healthy. Or Greg Olsen. I think 400 Greg Olsen could be an absolute steal. And then I am likely fading Reynolds, and I don't see myself landing on a lot of Robert Woods, just being overpriced, where I prefer Cooper Kupp. All right, thanks again for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below and the like. Give me a comment. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks.